Soon I'm going to show you how to sketch a dragon, but I also want to tell you about my YouTube journey. I haven't made a video for a while because I've been busy building my studio. It's been disheartening how long it takes, and all the little things that can stop a build is maddening. But during the build, I hit 50,000 subs, which calls for a bit of a celebration. Last time I got 10,000 subs, I did a how to draw a dragon video, so I'm going to do another how to draw a dragon video. But this has also made me reflect on my YouTube journey. I started back in 2007 and I was working in zoos at the time. I was sketching a lot of the time, handling animals. I decided to combine these passions and create the snake artist. At the time I was also doing quite a bit of animal wrangling for different wildlife documentaries. Sometimes I was frustrated in that I would see amazing things in nature and I'd try and talk about this, but they're more interested in following a script or looking at the usual things. They weren't interested in the smaller things, which I think are quite beautiful. So I decided to have a YouTube channel because I had complete control over what I wanted to do. And the other idea of combining it with art was that to describe an animal, you have to look at an animal. And the best way to look at anything is to draw it. So by drawing, we get to really closely observe all the details of an animal, and we can learn a lot just by looking. So that's what I was going to try and bring along to this YouTube channel. In my spare time, I've started to make a dragon's head out of cardboard and paper mache. Makes a good model. It's also made me think a little bit about my adventures looking at real dragons, alligators and dinosaurs. So let's get started. Don't press too hard with your pencil, we're going to use very light lines. I'm using a charcoal, it might look darker, just so you can see it, so it'll pick up on the camera. But you can use pencil if you like. Just try and follow some of these lines here. If I go too fast, just pause the video, catch up. They're just curves, strokes, brackets. And if you can just follow some of these lines, these are the guidelines. They don't have to be perfect, because it's a fantasy creature. The dragons can be all sorts of shapes. So if yours are a bit thick, thin, doesn't really matter. Putting lots of little spiky bits on this guy, because real dragons have spikes. These are just more exaggerated, these ones. And a bit of a crooked jaw there. Still sort of working on the idea of sort of like a dinosaur with spikes, really. There's a little nose hole there, which is a bit like a teardrop going up there. Colour that in. And just a few lines here. So you see, I started off with something and now I'm refining it. I'm not copying the exact line, I'm just changing it as I go. A little bit of shading on the tip of the snout there. A bit of shading about mid-snout there. So these are all just, from the model that I've made. I'm pretty much copying that. The other thing people probably don't know about me is that I like to strap on armour and fight in medieval tournaments. Full contact medieval sword fighting. It's a martial art that is a lot more exciting than going to the gym. Sword fighting has become a big part of my life, and because of this, it's about to spill out into my art as well. Dragons are kind of the connection between swords and fantasy and natural history. Also in medieval times, the word dragon and the word serpent are very closely connected, almost interchangeable for snake-like creatures. How to draw a dragon, part 2. So I'm going to shove some teeth in here. So it's just a zigzag line to start with, but we're going to refine that in a minute. And a lot of this shading I'm doing around here is kind of rough, not smoothing or smudging anything. I will do part of that in a little while. Darkening up around the eye to make it sort of look a bit savage and mean looking. Just give him a little stripe there for an eye. This is a savage looking dragon. So as I darken up a bit and do some wiggly rough lines there around the shading, those wiggly rough lines sort of describe the texture of a dragon, because dragons are they kind of look all bumpy and rough. Although in reality, when you touch those little bumps on a real dragon, as in the lizard, they're kind of a bit soft. Same as when you stroke a crocodile, it's a little bit soft and spongy. But it kind of looks all sort of gnarly in that, so little sort of curvy lines like that describe the shape, but also kind of like describing scales in a way. Shading under there. And all the bits underneath, I usually go around and darken up. See, it makes the gaps between the teeth. See the bottom, so rather the top of the jaw and the bottom of the jaw there, I do heavier lines and a bit more shading. So shading is just sort of, you start off gentle and just make it harder and harder. The more you press, the darker things get. So when you get used to using your pencil at different pressures, you'll get different lines. I put some teeth like that, a little bit of an overbite, just like an alligator. He's starting to look a bit mean now. So just a few more little refinements, a little bit around this nozzle there. And a couple of bits there. So you can sort of see as my shading, I kind of like this really rough shading. Like I said, it probably describes this animal better if it is a little bit rough. I'll show you how to do the smooth bit in a little while, but first of all, just knock in some of this rough, pretty harsh looking scales. And horns and spikes and all sorts. Better put in a neck, I think. So starting off there, a bit of a wrinkle in the neck like, well, both dragons and dinosaurs would think dinosaurs had. Shading that bit in. So I might continue the spikes down the back of the neck here. In the middle here, just a few little sort of rough lines to sort of indicate scales. So a bunch of sort of curvy bits. Darken around the eye. The eye is always really important. I always press heavier to get heavier lines. So it's coming on quite good. To look to my future, I will revisit my past. These two books had a big influence on my art journey. The William Stout dinosaur book, it showed me that wildlife could be exciting. And this is the bit where I probably talk about how I love the little lines and bumps and little circle bits of detail, a little bit of texture that William Stout puts in a lot of his dinosaurs. If you have a really close look at the textures, some of the pencil work and ink work, it's a beautiful thing. Very inspired by William Stout. I don't want to draw exactly like him, but I can feel a bit of inspiration from him. It's good to be inspired by other artists. And the Patrick Woodroffe book here, this book is interesting in that it was an inspiration to a young artist. Just looking at photographs of him in his print studios or working. For me at the time, without internet, it was a big inspiration. I just longed to be like this guy here. I'm not even a big fan of his work. I just love the fact that his fantasy works has so many elements of reality mixed in there. So moving forward, I will put a bit more fantasy into my work. I'll probably put a bit more medieval, sword fighting, dragons. But I also want to bring it back to wildlife as much as I can. Natural history is still just in my DNA when it comes to art. So we're being roughly scratching in sort of some rough scales and things like that with sort of rough cross hatching, making it looking pretty, rough and ready. But now we're going to do a little contrast here, and that's around the eye. Now you can smudge it with the tip of your finger. I'm not going right to the black bit, just around the edges, just to soften that, and then go back over with the pencil to separate that from the rest of the rough and gnarly bits. See again, it's little scales everywhere now. So all these rough, scratchy, scaly, stripy lines, they're all in contrast to the eye. And it makes you tend to look at the eye as being a different texture. It's more smooth where everything else is kind of rough. One of those little tricks you can do with drawing. If I go too fast, just, pause the video. If you make a mistake, just erase it and fix it. Don't stress about it. Like I say, it doesn't have to be perfect, because dragons aren't even real. Not these sort of dragons. You can sort of, make up your own a bit. You can even sort of follow along, and then after this, draw your own sort of dragon your own way, and just use some of those sort of squiggly, rough, scratchy lines. And I'm done. So the future of this channel, you're going to see me adding tutorials about fantasy creatures as well as real animals. I have both wildlife and fantasy shirts to print, and occasionally medieval themes will creep in. So if you're one of those 50,000 subscribers watching in on this, I hope you're going to stick around for the journey. I'll see you in the next video.